Hello, my name is Christine Olinda. As I progressed through this course, I learned a lot about what is digital literacy and what it means to be an effective 21st century teacher. I would like to start my presentation by giving you a quick overview about myself. In the About tab, I wrote about my journey as a teacher and how I started my career as an elementary general education teacher, but realized that I am truly a special education teacher at heart. Like all of you, we were thrust into being virtual teachers in March. Yet, I believe many of us in this course are ahead of our colleagues because we have experience as digital students. So when it was time to write our inquiry question, I already knew that I wanted to focus on writing. My inquiry question is, how can digital literacies help improve writing skills and increase motivation for students with learning disabilities? I added this quote by Chris Lehman. Technology must be like oxygen, ubiquitous, necessary, and invisible. I really felt like this hits the nail on the head as I began doing research about how teachers are improving writing skills using technology. I also gave a brief description about digital literacy and learned that digital literacy is much more than just learning to use technology, but to learn how to communicate, locate, evaluate, use, and create information. I would like to show you my blog post. I'll scroll down to my informative blog. I opened the blog with a vignette of my self-contained special education 5th grade classroom a few years ago. It was my struggle with having great conversations about literacy with my students, but getting almost nothing from those same students when it came time to write. What I learned is the importance of a widespread audience as a motivator for students with learning disabilities, and that by asking my students to respond on paper was not very motivating. In fact, in a blog that I read as part of my research called All About Learning Disabilities and ADHD by LD Online, I learned that writing for the web can help increase motivation for writing and help your students learn how to adapt their texts for different audiences, tasks, and purposes. So it finally dawned on me, if I can increase my students' motivation to write, then they will write and read more. And if I can increase the time my students spend writing and reading, I can improve their writing skills. This led my research into a different direction. I needed to find digital platforms that I believe my students would find motivating and fun to use. So through my research, I found quite a few reading apps and online organizers that I felt were something I could reasonably teach my students to use, including some that I was and was not familiar with. You can click on each to get an example if you are interested. Then after I posted, I was excited to read my comments. In fact, in my blog comments, Ryan made the point, and I'll scroll to Ryan's. Ryan made the point that as special education teachers, we really need to spend time teaching our students apps that they can manage independently. And he mentions how challenging this can be. So I agree with you, Ryan, that I think blogging, digital stories, and using Twitter may be the most useful tools I have found this far. I'd like to go to blog number 2, and I'll scroll up for that. So in my second blog, I argue the use of digital tools. In a quote by Carl Hughes, I learned that if we hope to prepare the next generation of students for an increasingly competitive global workforce, technology must be at the front and center of our teaching. And really, isn't that our goal, to have students that can get jobs when they leave school? So in my research, I found a blog titled Pencil versus Keyboarding. and you can click on the link here if you want to read it. But it does say that, yes, handwriting can strengthen a student's ability to read and write. But then in another blog by Hernandez, titled From Analog to Digital, he makes an excellent point that writing, whether it's with paper and pencil or digitally, doesn't change the fact that the foundations of good writing are the same in any platform. Critical thinking, analysis, structure, voice, tone, and audience are still considerations. So now it was time to test my theory. Can digital writing motivate me as a student? We were assigned to do a digital story, and I really struggled to complete this assignment. And I want to go to my digital story now. I just really couldn't figure out what I wanted to write about. And then in the middle of the night, it finally hit me. Use the technology you already know and that you already have. So I grabbed my cell phone and I started going through my photos, searching for possible writing ideas. I finally decided to share a story about the time I took my Girl Scout troop to participate in goat yoga. As I looked through my photos, the story basically wrote itself. It was highly motivating for me to use pictures I actually took myself. And I began putting the pictures in order and then opened a blank Google document and began typing the story. You can click here on the link to view the YouTube, and I just want to click ahead here, and I'll pause that. After I published my story, I loved reading the comments, and many of my classmates loved the humor and enjoyed how I used foreshadowing to predict the crazy outcome of the day. And so I could add some words to my slide, and here's my foreshadow with her face telling us how the day is going to go. Utilizing digital storytelling is definitely something I plan to do with my students. I truly believe they will love being able to use their cell phones to use their own photos. Teenagers are great with this stuff, and so are elementary students. Google Docs makes sharing and editing work easy, and it can be done whether we are in a hybrid model or totally virtual learning. Let me go back to blogs. In my final blog, I discussed what it means to be a 21st century teacher. And so some of my highlights include learning new technology and giving students about the choice of the digital platforms that they choose to use, going global and connecting with others around the world, using smartphones like how I use them for my digital story, blogging like we did for this class and assignment, and then the use of Twitter. I would like to share my Twitter feed with you, and I'll click up here. And so here's my Twitter feed. Most of you are following me already, but I must be honest, before I was in this class, I already had a Twitter account, but only because our principal encouraged us to have them. However, I am so glad to have gotten the Twitter bug. I truly believe I've gotten some of the best ideas about writing in the last few weeks via Twitter than I have had in any PD that my district has offered. So here are some things that I'd like to share with you. I retweeted from the National Write Center a chart that will help me shift from in-person writers workshop to a digital writers workshop. This was very helpful for me. And then after I started following the National Write Center, I began to start following Susan Barber. So Susan Barber is a teacher just like myself, and she's really embraced using digital literacy. She has even created a virtual writer's notebook that I would like to share with you. So in her blog here, she talks about writing workshop that can thrive in a pandemic, and then she shares a digital notebook. And so I have it saved here in my Google Drive that I'd like to share with you. With her permission, any teacher is allowed to use her template for free, just to be sure to give her credit. And so the writer's notebook's like this. It's completely editable. You can put whatever you want here. But what I found most particularly helpful in the template was that she included a user's guide. And so when you click on this hyperlink on the user's guide, she has already created videos, how-to videos for our students. Now, this is not to replace teaching students how to utilize the digital tools online, but these are for a reference so that students and even their parents can watch the videos in case they forget how to do something. So as you can see, she included videos of how to add a slide, writing mini lessons, how to create hyperlinks, and how to add images of on-paper work to your digital notebook. I found these extremely beneficial, and I plan on using this with my own students when we return to school. I've already shared this template with many of my coworkers, and several of us have agreed to make other how-to videos and share them and add them to our user guide. I would not have been able to find this. Well, there's other things here. She also includes a dialogue journal, a reading, writing, and language field guide, but again, these are completely editable. But I don't think I would have been able to find this or even know about it if I hadn't been so involved in Twitter. So I think Twitter is now a very valuable resource for teachers. And I would argue that it is the best way for me to get PD in an area that I feel I need and not what the district thinks I need. Overall, I learned a lot about how to use technology with my students to increase their motivation to write and to improve their writing skills. As we all embark on a new, exciting, scary, and unpredictable new school year, I hope that all of you consider using digital platforms to help increase your students with learning disabilities motivation and improve their writing skills. Thank you.